it always feels weird when you come back from a long hiatus to do the show. So welcome everybody to the Breaking Down Security Podcast. I'm Brian Brake. With me as always is Mr. Betcher.
Hello.
And that silence you hear is the lack of Ms. Berlin. She's feeling a little icky today, and so she's not going to join us. To fill the spot, and actually she was supposed to be our guest, but she's going to be our honorary third wheel. Third wheel. Is that no, probably shouldn't say.
No. Co-host?
Co-host. Honorary co-host. Miss Tracy Maleeff is here this week with us. Tell people about yourself, Miss Tracy.
Hi, everyone. I'm so thrilled to be here today as a third wheel.
Third wheel. We're going to make third
you
wheel
may know
positive.
me as InfoSecSherpa on Twitter. I'm still new to the information security industry. I was a librarian, and then I up and decided to change careers, and that's a long story for another time. But I work as a cyber analyst now in a SOC, and I have all kinds of interesting things that I do to help people learn about security and learning about the SOC job and doing the SOC job. And I am just thrilled to be here today to talk to you all.
Awesome. So you were a librarian. Was it like the TV show with Noah Wiley where they were fighting bad guys and stuff?
Well, I worked with attorneys. I'll just leave it at that.
Oh, well, surprised you've got all your fingers. They didn't bite them off.
Yeah, I never watched that show, so I'm not entirely sure what it was. It was just like working in an office. It was a lot of research. So yes, all these antiquated ideas that people have about librarianship need to go away. It's a lot of research. And it does not, there are people who work in fantastic, gorgeous libraries, but I just worked in a law office.
So you took care of all the huge leather-bound books and was able to run things down, or?
Well, it wasn't all about books. I mean, it was a lot about OSINT, which I didn't realize when I was doing it that it was called OSINT. It wasn't until I did my career change that. So funny story. I thought that things like OSINT and human and all were these complicated computer terms. So I was really embarrassed, and I kind of whispered to someone, I was like, "What does OSINT mean?" And he described it to me, and I said, "Oh, that was called doing my job as a librarian." Okay.
Right.
So yeah, there's a book aspect, but it's just you need to have research skills to pull up the law cases. So there's a whole set of ways to research legal things, but then they also need that supplemental information, which we would all call OSINT. So yeah, you need to pull information in for the attorneys.
Very cool.
For the cases and things like that.
All right. Very nice. I have when I was on my vacation, which I'll tell people who are not interested in a few minutes about, one of the people who joined us on our cruise group to Europe, she was a librarian too. And I told her, I was like, oh, I know somebody who does, library, sciences for law stuff. And I think she's still going, she has her going through her library sciences degree. So she's still working through all that, but
yeah, I have a master's of library and information science degree. And I mean, I do use my, as we say, LIS skills in the SOC every day, or, organization of information or dealing with end users. I also give talks now trying to help InfoSec people get the soft skills they need to talk to end users, because that's one of the fundamentals of librarianship is user interaction.
Right on. Mr. Betcher, it's been, for those of you who are listening to the show, it's only been a little over a week and a half, but for us, it's been almost 3. So how you been doing for the last few weeks, Mr. Betcher?
Been doing good. Everything's going well for me.
Yeah.
Still got a job and working hard at it.
Cool.
Still got the side hustle, LogMD, and trying to get everybody to school on time and all that good stuff.
Right. Before we started recording, you said you were trying to add some new functionality to LogMD.
Yeah, we've got, we're working on process snapshots. Yeah. So kind of like Process Explorer. Yeah. Except you can do it remotely. LogMD will take a snapshot of your processes and then pull all that up. And then you use your intelligence, for example, your master digest of all the things that should be running or that you have approved to run in your environment. It'll put those against that. And anything left, that's filtering out the noise. So anything left that doesn't match, you can then research. And it'll give you some automatic virus total lookups. And we've got a static analysis tool coming up that'll be useful to give you more information to determine whether this thing running on Bob's machine is good or bad.
Very cool.
So I'm looking forward to that and getting that out there. It's kind of like Process Explorer, but you do it on all your systems at the same time.
Yeah. Okay. Very cool. Yeah. So yeah, for those of you who were in the know or on the Slack channel, I took a 2-week vacation to Europe, which was really nice because I'd never been to Slovakia and Budapest and Bucharest and all those areas. Had a fairly skewed version because of Hollywood about what Romania and everything looked like. Apparently, it's not just gypsies, vampires, and pickpockets. So and hackers. So it's really beautiful countryside. There's a lot of very beautiful architecture, interesting people, and very cosmopolitan. So thank you to all of the people. I know you probably didn't see me when I was in Romania or whatever, but thank you for having such an awesome country. And I would definitely come back and live there if I could. I probably can't because of time zone changes and customers, but I definitely will make it a point to come back. And if anybody besides Vienna or besides Budapest would need a keynote speaker, I know a guy. He might come back and hang out for a week or so. But yeah, it's not Mr. Betcher, it's me right here. So anyway. So I digress. So we had Miss Tracy on tonight. She has a couple of talks that she's going to be doing coming up at a conference called Cofense Submerge, which I've never heard of before.
They used to be called Fish Me.
Really?
They changed names.
Probably should have stayed with the old name. Anyway. So this is a conference that they created. Is it like a vendor conference?
I've never been, so I am not sure what to expect, but
okay.
I am a pathological CFP submitter. So
okay.
When I saw that they had something open, I submitted this talk. It's called Empathy as a Service to Create a Culture of Security, because what I do interacting with end users regarding phishing emails kind of falls into that category of treating end users with respect and empathy rather than calling them stupid. Because right. I take a few minutes out of my day, and it literally is just a few minutes. It doesn't take a long time to connect with someone just to kind of get to the bottom of it. I'd rather know right away if they've clicked on something or opened something rather than, see an alert later,
mm-hmm.
Come through. So kind of talk to them real quick, walk them through, hey, let me share my screen. Let me show you some red flags that were in that email so that for next time,
right.
Things like that. So that's why I felt like that topic was good for a conference that's going to center around phishing.
Right. Okay, that's very cool. So you said you worked at a SOC. Is it part of an MSSP, or are you working for
I'm
a company?
on site at a global company.
Okay.
I'm
cool.
in-house.
Okay. So do you ever get repeat customers who've clicked on links that you've had to explain to, or is it a kind of a one-time thing?
They don't. Possibly. I don't know every single time. It's more so it's leaving that door open of, hey, let us know if you've clicked on something
right.
that is suspicious. So things like that. It's more just like really, jumping on those notifications we get when someone contacts us, because we encourage it in the messaging of please let us know if you've clicked on something. Sometimes I'll be proactive, and if I'll see the same person, submitting things, I'll say like, hey, why don't we block that user, for you? I mean, not as you know, phishing doesn't always come from the same email address, but if it's, something that I can help them with, like, hey, let's block that for you, or even just asking people why they've clicked on things. I've done that. I've asked people, I've done it in a way not to make them feel bad.
Mm-hmm.
I might tell a little bit of a white lie that I'm taking a survey. But, in order to improve their experience, I'd like to ask you some questions about this. And I just want to know from them, like, what is it about these emails that they're make them click? Most frequent answer is just that it's usually, well, I was expecting a package. I was expecting a fax. I was expecting something.
Right.
So that's when I just say, hey, let me show you my screen. Let me show you some red flags. And, one time I did that, this guy you could tell in his voice, he was really stressed out because he said, ever since I clicked on this link, my computer's been acting weird. And I feel, I'm really worried that I did something. Long story short, he needed a new battery for his wireless mouse, because if you've ever had a low battery on your wireless mouse, it makes the your screen, like, it makes the pointer do weird things,
right.
And sometimes the screen freezes. But just taking a moment to talk to him, like, well, tell him what's happening with your screen. So independently in the sandbox, I'd gone through the email he clicked on and realized that it wasn't malware, it was credential grabbing. Right. So that's when I started asking him questions like, okay, well, maybe there's something else going on. Was quickly able to diagnose that it was, I said, I'm 99% sure you need a new battery.
Right.
So I was able to put him at ease. And so basically it's like, okay, well, since I, helped troubleshoot that for you, can you stay on the line another moment and let me show you some of these, red flags that you missed? And he said, sure. And he paid attention. And yeah, I haven't heard any, negative things from him since, because I haven't seen him, tell us that he's clicked on anything again. So I'm a big proponent of that. And I don't think enough people are. And again, that comes from my foundation in librarianship, because being approachable and having end user engagement, it was just such a big part of my studies. So I want to bring that into InfoSec and teach others about it.
Mr. Betcher, you used to do incident response for your company. You may still do it, I don't know. But did you have any kind of, methodology when you were, when people would click on, emails or malicious links? Or was it just, okay, they've done it, let's isolate their machine and quarantine and fix it, and then, take the whole human element issue out?
And shaming. No.
What's that?
I felt that the women were really open to. I don't know whether it was just the way that I talked to people when they had a potential incident, but they were really open to suggestions and things. Whereas the most of the men that I talked to really standoffish, like, I didn't do anything wrong. Why are you bothering me?
Oh, you know what it's like to be a woman then.
Oh, yeah.
It was, it was interesting. But the methodology was that you would contact them, and I would always say, I saw something suspicious. Can I take a look?
Right.
Things like that. You wouldn't say, you've got something on your machine, right? You've got a virus. We need to get that cleaned up. It was always, hey, I saw an alert. I would just like to check it out just to make sure it's nothing bad. And then once I got them on the phone, I started just asking questions. Like, did you go to any, sites that you've never been to before, or what were you doing at this time? Things like that to garner more information. That was all that it was.
Oh, okay.
And it was just like a conversation.
Yeah. All
yeah,
right.
exactly. Put them at ease, take the foot out of it. I do my best to be careful about language. I don't say things like, what did you do next? I'll say, what action did you, take next? And and I know that's just a minor difference, but what did you do sounds very accusatory.
Right.
So it's like, tell me which action you did next. Oh, well, then I clicked on this. What action did you take after that? Because that's what they were. They're actions. They had to do something. So I do my best. And I know some people are probably rolling their eyes when they are going to listen to this. And I know you can't do it all the time. I know there's going to be scenarios when it's really not possible. But when it's something like a user emails you and says, hey, I clicked on a link, what do I do now? There's no reason for you not to be nice to them. They're coming to you and they're going to probably save you a lot of grief later, to be honest. So yeah, I feel very passionately about that we can treat end users a lot better.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting you're doing these talks because apparently I missed the entire month of October because it was National Cybersecurity Awareness Month or something like that. I don't know what color our ribbon is, but it's probably zeros and ones or something. I don't know. So it's interesting that you're trying to create the culture. But so my question is, are you the only person at your organization who does this? Because it seems like if everybody was doing it the way you're doing it, there'd be probably less people who are clicking on links because eventually everybody would be schooled.
Well, no, we have a whole department. I mean, we're fortunate that we are a big company.
Cool.
We do have a whole department that does, information security awareness, training, the messaging, the communications. But what I haven't seen before, and this is the new path that I'm trying to, with my machete, cut a new trail, is being in the SOC and working directly with those awareness, training, and communications people so that they know what we actually see versus what they think we see, because there's all that material out there telling them what they should be warning end users about, whereas I step in and I talk to them of, no, this is what we really see, and this is what I really need you to communicate with the end users, get out of that cookie cutter mentality. Like, let's make it unique to our company. So that's where I think is new, is being on the inside of the SOC and then still kind of doing that outreach.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, very nice. Very nice. So one of the other talks you were going to give was a deep dive into social media as an OSINT tool and I looked at this earlier and it looked like the ISAC Fail Summit, but it's ISAC Fall Summit.
Fall Summit, yes. Yes, that will be in San Antonio. And so hashtag Riverwalksec. The HISAC, there's different ISACs for different industries. The H1, it used to be NHISAC, and a couple months ago they just decided we're just H.
Right.
It's for health, but includes pharma, hospitals, medical, things like that. So that I was pleasantly surprised that talk was accepted. So as I mentioned before, in my previous life as a librarian, I did a lot of online research, did not realize it was called OSINT. So what I do with this talk is I also give you the landscape of social media. I've given this talk in different forums at different B-sides before and things like that. I actually spoke at DEF CON's Recon Village, and I got into this a little bit. First of all, just the landscape of social media. I don't think that people realize that for every maybe 5 social media platforms they know, there's probably 25 that they don't know. So that's also going to impact your research. If there's all these other platforms out there that you're not searching, sometimes it determines the region. Brazil, for example, and China, a lot of them have their own homegrown social media that people that we in North America we don't necessarily know about. Right. So think of all that information you're missing. I also get into a little bit about demographics. If you're trying to research a target that is a teenager, well, Facebook's probably not the place to go. Exactly. For them. Each social media platform has a key demographics, and there's a graphic that I show of times a day that are key for posting if you want to optimize your posts. But when I present it, I look at it the other way. Okay, well, maybe if this if this graphic is true, then maybe that's the best time to do your OSINT research while everybody thinks that's the best time to post. You see what I'm saying? So just pulling all this information that's circulating around the social media world of how to engage with social media, kind of extracting that and putting it into the context of how can we use this information and data to optimize our OSINT research.
Yeah.
And then Twitter's sort of my specialty, so I kind of take a special deep dive into Twitter of how to craft searches, advanced searches in Twitter. And the feedback I get from that is surprising. I get a lot of people who say to me, I can write scripts better now to interact with Twitter now that I understand what Twitter can do, because there's a lot of features in Twitter people don't understand how they work. So I talk about it from a GUI perspective. But what I found that people come back to me and says, okay, well, once you showed me how it works on the GUI, I can now go write a script to do that. And I'm like, great, as long as you learn something, because the scripting part's not necessarily my forte. The GUI part is. So I go through that with a couple different things, and I'll give a little spoiler alert. Another area that I'm starting to get into talking about are those online like Kanban boards, Trello, and things like that. There's a way you can craft a Google search to kind of see, what people are putting out there. They don't, or who forget to lock up their Kanban boards.
Okay.
So I'm considering that social media because it is a social interaction type of environment.
Right.
So what is the Health Information Sharing and Analysis Center? I mean, why would you want, what is it all about, health information sharing?
Yeah, in my follow-on question to this is, why would healthcare need to understand using social media as an OSINT tool? Because it seems to me that you want to keep social media out of the hospitals as much as possible because you have oversharing.
Well, there's a lot of people who come to this. I mean, they're going to be blue teamers doing research or red teamers employed, because remember, it's not just hospitals, it's pharmaceutical, it's medical devices. So I mean, if any of those companies have red teams and blue teams, there's going to be some sort of online research, threat intelligence. There's a robust threat intelligence community within the HISAC.
Okay.
So that's primarily who this is going to be geared for. Anyone. I mean, I'm not a keynote or anything. I'm just like an individual little session. So I mean, anyone who doesn't deal with this just won't go to it. But I'm hitting those people who do need to do that sort of research, threat intelligence, or red teamers and things like that.
I didn't know who your audience was. I thought it was like you're trying to teach doctors how to,
No. This is a security conference of people who work in security. I apologize if I didn't make that clear. I wasn't sure. Since there are many ISACs, I guess I just assumed that you would all know what those are. No, it's security people within specific industries. It gives us somewhere to go. Okay. It's a more niche security conference. So yeah, the whole conference is security related.
Right. So you're going to be teaching a little bit about threat hunting as well on that.
Yeah, if that's how you, I mean, if you want to define it that way, sure. Yeah, I'm going to show people how to better utilize social media to set up, to search for things, and I'm going to get into alerts a little bit. I don't want to give away all my tips, but just some things that I don't think people think about, because when I mention it to them, everyone's always like, oh, like I never thought of that. So trying to compile all those little tidbits that people are so surprised to hear and combine it into one talk. And no, it's not recorded. And I think my slides can only be shared with members of the organization. So
okay.
That's usually, whenever I mention speaking, the first question, everybody's like, is it recorded? Yeah. And it is not.
Okay. That's not a problem. So we had, other than discussing those things, we had a news story or two that we thought we'd go through. Unless, Mr. Betcher, you've got some other questions or anything else you'd like to add?
No. Okay, move on.
Cool. We'll start with the cybersecurity incident. In the links, it's not misspelled. It's actually spelled Biglaw, and Tracy can explain why it's spelled the way it's spelled. We're talking about ransomware security incident at a big law firm.
Okay, so yes, a brief description is there's such a list that exists that called the AmLaw 100 or AmLaw 300. It's like the Fortune 500.
Right.
Stands for American Lawyers. So they base your ranking is based on your size and your revenue and things like that. So there are a handful there's like the top 100 that are considered big law. So a lot of money, a lot of people.
Right.
And it's just called Biglaw just to distinguish it from, the mom and pop law firms or smaller law firms. So it's nothing that exciting. It's just when you hear big law, just, think, small, very, very large, very wealthy, revenue making law firm.
They're the most soul sucking of all the law firms, is what you're saying.
No comment.
Nah, that's okay. So apparently, Bloomberg Law, there was a report revealed that there was a firm called Foley and Lardner that was hit by an incident earlier this month. Do they go into what kind of incident it is, or
they do not? And what I didn't put in the notes, but I'll just read now, is this pull quote from the article that's from the communications manager at the law firm. Just made me a little crazy, because to me, I feel like this is the problem with law, because they're still acting like cybersecurity is this emerging threat when no, it's here.
Yeah.
The quote is, like many other organizations in this increasingly digital world, it's 2018, it's no longer increasing. Earlier this month, we incurred a cyber event that caused disruption to our IT systems. And that's all they said. But that quote just drove me crazy. Increasingly digital? Like, where have you been?
Yeah. Well, she's a PR person working for a law firm. She didn't want to disclose too much. Just the fact that, there was an incident. They don't even want to talk about what type of incident.
Well, yeah, it wasn't. Well, that's not even the part. Yeah. And just the increasingly digital. And as I was explaining to Mr. Brake earlier before we recording, I worked at the law firms for 10 years, and I saw from the inside how slow they are to adapt technology. It was painfully slow. I used to jokingly liken it to, trying to make a sharp turn of a cruise ship.
Right.
The cruise ships are not very agile. They do not move very quickly. And that's kind of what it felt like. So that also was one of the motivating factors of me wanting to get into InfoSec, because I was tired of the snail's pace.
Right.
So yeah, it is very interesting to look at legal publications and see how they handle cybersecurity incidents or just InfoSec incidents, because I feel like they're still far behind, still kind of treating it like something new. And obviously, that's not going to speak for every law firm, but just kind of the general composite that I see, it feels like a lot of them are still kind of treating it like this new thing.
Yeah. I'm reading down here. At least she put in the blurb that all PR companies do. We have security safeguards in place designed to protect our systems and confirmed no unauthorized access to client data. So I'm looking forward for the other articles where it's like, well, maybe some client data was gotten. Oh no, we completely were wrong.
There's a possibility that client data was accessed. They just can't confirm that. In other words, they don't have any logging in place to be able to verify that it happened. I mean, that's a possibility.
Security safeguards, which means they have a firewall. So, firewalls designed.
Well, they have logins, right? To their computers.
Hope so.
That can mean anything.
Right.
Really.
Yeah, and interesting, the article also mentions something that happened at DLA Piper last year. Looks like that they were hit with Petya, and DLA Piper is a gigantic law firm, so that's a pretty significant story. But yeah, and again, I'm not here to make a bunch of lawyer jokes or anything. I'm just saying that you can do that. The law firm role was very, very good to me as far as my career goes, but it's just frustrating. I mean, when I was still at the law firm, I tried to get involved with security. I started it was my quirky hobby before I realized that I wanted to do it professionally. But I approached the CIO. It was September 2015. I remember it very clearly. I asked what the firm was doing for Cybersecurity Awareness Month the next month, and could I be involved? And his response was, what's Cybersecurity Awareness Month? So long story short, I was put in charge of running their awareness campaign,
right,
because they didn't have anybody there. So I created slides and I had themes and I did all this. And then November 1st, I said, that was great. What else can I do? And he said, you can do it again next year. And that was the moment that I was like, oh no, no, I need to do this all the time.
On the reg, yeah.
And that's what started the snowball effect of, oh, okay, no, I need to do something else.
Right.
And I know that was, that wasn't that long ago. I mean, that was 3 years ago, and that was their attitude of, okay, we're not going to do it. Okay, awareness is done. That's it. Let's move on.
Yeah.
So, so that's just the frustration that I experienced.
Yeah, the DLA Piper, I'm reading the other article that they'd linked to. Apparently, DLA Piper, they're quick to tout their expertise in cybersecurity compliance. They offered even a 24/7 rapid response hotline, but they got owned by Petya from their offices in Madrid, which is kind of ironic. But yeah, so it's just, I don't know why it is, but I've worked in organizations and in industries that are always behind. Up until the last place I worked at, I worked in defense industry. I worked in healthcare auditing, which scared the hell out of me. But yeah, it just seems like that the places that do a lot for people, whether it be law firms, healthcare, finance, they all seem to be behind the curve with regards to new technologies or upcoming technologies. Maybe it's because they can't roll out fixes as fast because, they're all service-related organizations, except for the defense industry. I'm not sure why they lag so much with regards to that. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I know individually trying to educate the attorneys was a struggle. I found in my experience, and I'm just can only speak from my experience, that more often than not, the attorneys I dealt with were not tech savvy whatsoever. And I'm not talking about any particularly high level stuff. So that also made it frustrating. I remember having multiple conversations with attorneys trying to explain to them why their bank password and their LexisNexis or Westlaw password should not be the same thing. Yeah. I should not have to have this conversation, but we're going to have it.
Right.
So that's the kind of stuff, dealing with. Even just going to ebooks was a big struggle. A lot of the attorneys didn't want to give up their print books and wanted all the attorneys under them to have print books. So I think in a couple years, law will make a giant leap. I think a lot of things are being driven by people who aren't tech savvy. The decisions are being made by people who aren't tech savvy.
Right.
It's just kind of how I'm kind of looking at it from my experience.
That makes sense.
I think the reason is that it just hasn't been painful enough when they do get breached or when data does leave the proverbial door. It's just not. It's painful for their customers for sure. Right. When they have to get credit monitoring and they have to change all their passwords and they have to get their digital life back in order. But not for the companies who had those people who had been responsible for that data, or irresponsible, I should say.
Yeah. It
just hasn't been that bad. And what they do is they balance the profit and loss, and they're coming out way ahead without having to spend money on security.
So Tracy,
that's the reality.
Right. I have a question about data breaches. Let's say that DLA Piper, they got completely owned. It wasn't ransomware, but they were breached, and they lost all of their clients' information. What kind of ramifications? What kind of issues? What kind of things they could could happen to them. I mean, with PCI, if there's a breach, MasterCard, Visa, and them can actually jack up the rates that it costs to process a credit card. Or with hospitals, HIPAA and the Office of Civil Rights, OCR, can levy huge fines against the healthcare system. What kind of penalties does a law firm get?
Well, I can't speak to penalties. I don't know anything about that. But, think about the data. The basic data is going to be, the PII that a criminal could use, for the usual stuff. But think about going a little deeper about a law firm. You're talking about, court cases. It wouldn't surprise me if a cybersecurity incident was directed at a law firm as a means of maybe trying to, interrupt a case or something like that. Right. I mean, you're going to be impeding, the law if you mess up, if you interfere with these cases, if lawyers can't get to their materials, or if someone is looking for some information, maybe trying to suppress evidence. There's e-discovery and all that digital evidence. I mean, in some ways I feel like I'm kind of writing the plot of a television show, but it also sounds very real that if someone wanted to destroy some e-evidence, I mean, that's one way to do it, would be own a network and go and find it.
Yeah. Or,
so that's that kind of things. It's more that it is personal information to a point, but then it's also, the nature of the case. You have a lot of confidential, material and things like that.
I guess it'd be a reputation loss, but
reputation. I mean, you could lose a case if you can't access your records. You would be completely out. I'm sure you could get, the court, would give you some sort of more time, but still, I mean, you if you lost some files,
right,
then or evidence. So I would say probably be after the PII. I would say evidence, any digital evidence. If that's gone, that's a problem.
Privileged communications.
Has a big law firm ever been sued by a big law firm for a breach of?
I don't know.
Not that I've heard. Not that I've heard.
I mean, certainly that would get some play if there was like a bunch of lawsuits among the law firms themselves, like sort of a cage match. That would get some attention.
Yeah.
Not that I'm aware of. I think that would be pretty newsworthy. Even though I'm not in the legal world anymore, I do like to keep an eye, like JD Supra is a good site to check. I do like to keep an eye on what the cybersecurity related cases are, because I believe that's going to affect all of us. If there's, the law, I think lawsuits are going to drive, some of the IoT innovation and things like that. I think that'll be quicker than legislation, to be honest.
Yep.
Is litigation.
Yeah.
So I'd like to keep an eye on that.
Yeah, I was poking around on Google just, from what I was searching. According to CIO Magazine, from around the time the DLA Piper thing happened, they said, servers holding incredibly valuable information, business IP, possibly medical records, bank information, even government secrets. 40% of firms didn't know they were breached in 2016. I don't know how many is 40% of, so yeah, it's crazy. They said,
and in hindsight, I realize how much InfoSec is important to a law firm with the more knowledge that I have. I mean, for example, I used to ride the train home, and I could tell, what cases attorneys were working on because they would just freely talk about it. A good, even a bad social engineer could probably get a lot of information. I mean, there were even times when I could figure out what law firm they were with by what they were talking about, or me being in the library, I would know where to look on the print materials they took out to see where the identifications of the library were, or the law firm was. So I could tell by someone reading a newspaper or looking at a book what firm they were at. And it was, So again, with the information that I have now, having been in the industry for a brief period of time, it's way more apparent to me that law has a big InfoSec problem that I feel like they're a little slow to address.
Right. Yeah. The CIO magazine, helpful things that attorneys and legal professionals can do to start upping their defenses. Communicate and enforce password policy that limits access and requires authorized users to regularly change their credentials. Yes and no is a good thing, I guess. Conduct a weekly check for patches or other updates to computer security software. Problem is, a lot of this stuff, they said they don't even have money or they can't afford to have an in-house team. So they're just outsourcing all of this to some IT shop or some, we don't want to deal with it. You just, we're going to pay you a lot of money. Just do it. And then, when that company comes in and goes, hey, maybe you should change your passwords every, 120 days or every 90 days. The lawyers are going to balk. They're going to,
Oh, yeah. They'll never do that. And I know this from seeing it firsthand. IT people in law firms are just under so much stress and pressure. Not that they aren't anywhere else, but just what I witnessed and just the pressure. And there's so few of them that, these poor men and women, that's why a lot of people come to the library for tech help, because they were so overworked in the IT department that we were the next step. So we would try to help people with some more end user things. But again, what I witnessed in my own experiences at two different firms, that the IT staff was just so overworked and under so much stress because of law cases, lawsuits were on the line, that security is going to take a back seat when the attorney, the senior partner can't access his laptop or his or her laptop because of some issue. So I get it. I'm not trying to rag on the hardworking men and women in law firm IT, but
right.
Just reading these articles, like I said, if you take any time looking at legal publications and specifically the InfoSec parts of it, it feels a little astounding that some of the things that they're still dealing with.
Yeah. That's they're still in their infancy of trying to unscrew things. So cool.
I wish them well.
I got out and I'm never going back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There were a lot of positives to working in Biglaw, #Biglaw. But there were some negatives, but there were some positives. Like I said, when I left, I had an office with floor to ceiling windows and a door that closed and stuff, and I gave that up, to pursue my dream of working in InfoSec. I don't know if it was my dream, but my next career move. So nice. There's some good things.
Very cool. Wow. Well, this was fairly effortless. I don't think we need to go any further. Mr. Boettcher, is there anything that you'd like to ask or cover before we wrap up for this show?
Well, I was Googling legal conferences. Maybe you would, since you have a disease that is called submitting talks, to try and get yourself into a law firm or a law conference and actually speak about cybersecurity there.
Well, I've spoken at a lot of law librarian conferences. Actually, I went to Africa to speak to the South African Law Library Association. Huh. So I've been working on the librarian side. Okay. To make them aware of stuff. No, you make a good point. The
guys making the decision, the top lawyers in the law firm, they're really resistant to better technology there. And I think with some of the newbies coming up that go through school and college that are really tech savvy, I'm not so sure that they have the wherewithal to say, there's all this cool stuff, and if we implement this cool stuff, right, that I've been using my whole life into the law firm, that even opens up the door to more exploits, right? You would think, rather than them, they always have these big file cabinets, and as long as you lock the door, you're fine. But it may be getting worse sooner
But you make a good point, and I mean, I think that anyone should submit a talk to a legal conference, to share their expertise. Which is actually another thing I wanted to talk about, but it looks like we're short on time now. But just encouraging people get outside of our bubble. I go to library conferences, law library or other conferences, just because I know that world. I can speak to them. But I'm getting outside of our bubble to talk to people about InfoSec. And, law firm conferences, law conferences would be great. They do have, I forget what it's called, but I think it's just called the AmLaw Tech Conference, where it's all legal technology at this whole conference. Things like that. There's definitely opportunity. So yeah, if you have any interest in law that you want to talk, to this audience, because remember, you need to get your message across to this audience. So if you feel like you have that dynamic sort of personality that you can get through to a bunch of lawyers who are going to be resistant to your message, then do that. Whereas when I talk to the law firm librarians, they know that I came from them. I was one of them. So I haven't had anybody resistant to my talks because I connect with them. So that's why I've just been sticking to the law firm librarian conference world to do my talks.
Don't law conferences or librarian conferences require like a dress code?
No.
Lawyers?
I mean, I joke that a cardigan is required, but it's not. It's just what we wear. So
we could wear what we're wearing at, say, I don't know, black hat or DEF CON at a lawyer conference. But
lawyer and librarian are two different things. At a law conference might have a dress code. Again, it depends on if you want to play to type and be the scraggly IT/security person. But the message might resonate more if you mirror them. That's a technique when you're trying to negotiate and talk to the C-suite. If you look like a mirror image of them, then they're more apt to listen to you and not disregard you.
So if you ape them, then you're more likely to
that's what the studies say. I mean, that's not something I came up with, but I mean, that's what I've read. Because I mean, some of these attorneys wearing, $1,000 more suits might see someone in ripped jeans, and a Misfits t-shirt and a hoodie and just be like, I'm not listening to this person.
Okay.
Like, this person has nothing to say that interests me.
The opposite may be true as well. I'm not sure.
I feel like it could go either way. Like, that's why I said, if you want to play to type, and do that, they might listen. But I don't know.
If you want to play to authenticity and knowledge, they might believe you more if you come out in your normal attire.
Looking like a hacker.
He's not one of us, so he's here to teach us something that he's an expert in, right?
No, you're absolutely right. Yeah, I honestly, I feel like it could go either way. It's really, I guess it would depend on the conference itself. If the conference has a dress code and expectations, then follow that. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know. We could debate this for hours. I think it could go either way.
We've talked about this on the show before about getting outside, the InfoSec comfort zone, So you go into, health and information, healthcare stuff is great. So do they have CFPs or do they have that kind of stuff for these kind of conferences? Or is it like you've just got to find somebody and go, hey, I'm interested in talking?
For which one, law or the ISAC?
Either one.
Well, the ISAC has the call for proposals. I think it's only limited to members. And that's where the sticky wicket is that a lot of these law conferences and the librarian conferences, they don't make the call for proposals public.
They're very exclusive.
You have to kind of use your people skills, your networking skills, and kind of get in there and find out, maybe be invited. But yeah, so to the best of my knowledge, I can't imagine that anything was open to the public. But again, you're security people. Figure a way to get
to get through the defenses. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Don't let that deter. I mean, why has a barrier ever stopped you before? You know, if you really wanted to give this talk, you'll find a way to get it in and get your proposal in front of someone.
That's true. All right. Well, I think we probably should wrap that up. One other thing, you want to mention your Nuzzle newsletters. What is that?
Oh, yeah. So it's a daily-ish newsletter that I curate. There's one of them just about general security, and then one that I do specifically about cybersecurity in Africa, because that's kind of my passion now, is helping develop the InfoSec community in Africa and also educating end users there, because I did that back in June. It was just a life-changing experience.
Right.
So if you go to nuzzle.com, that's NUZZEL.com/InfoSecSherpa, and also nuzzle.com InfoSecSherpa/cybersecurity-Africa. You'll find my list. I try to do them on a daily basis. It's just a roundup of news articles that I feel like aren't getting a lot of attention, at least for my InfoSec one. The general one is things that I think are off the radar. Mm-hmm. Then the Africa one is just any news that I can find in general.
Right on.
And yeah, so I do that as a service for the community, and I've gotten mostly positive feedback about it. I get people who complain to me that my information isn't that unique. I don't know why they couldn't just unsubscribe and why they felt compelled to send me a nasty note about it, but whatever. Most people like it, so that's fine.
I usually add a lot of stuff, blogs and stuff. So I'll try to add this to my my Feedly so I can keep up on it.
Thank you.
Yeah, no worries.
Yeah, because I try to find things that are not the big news items. So don't rely on my newsletter if you're trying to find the breaking news. I try to find the things that have gone under the radar. And honestly, I've gotten a lot of cool feedback from people who've told me that I've uncovered things that they haven't seen anywhere else. So I'll take it.
Cool.
Nice.
Right on. All right, cool. So you can be found at InfoSecSherpa on Twitter. There's another one as well, right?
What?
Did you have another Twitter account?
No.
Okay.
No, it's my librarian one. I don't really use it, so no InfoSecSherpa.
Okay, cool. And you'll be in San Antonio when?
Last week in November.
Okay. And that's for the Health Information Sharing and Analysis Center. But unless you're a member of HISAC, you're not going to get to go to that conference. So,
nope.
Cool. And then CoFin Submerge might be a better thing for InfoSec people. That's the people who used to be FishMe. They probably should have just stayed with FishMe because that rolls off the tongue a lot better than CoFin Submerge. I don't know what the hell that means. So check Tracy out at those conferences if you have a chance. So that's pretty awesome. So, Mr. Betcher, how would people get a hold of you if they wanted to discuss email and phishing and LogMD and stuff?
Yeah, the website log-md.com. From there, I'm also on Twitter at BetcherPwned. My last name, Betcher, BetcherPwned.
Awesome.
There is I did some Googling while you guys were discussing conferences, and there is a 2019 World Technology Law Conference on May 5th, 2019. Man, if we have somebody from the security community go and submit a talk and be accepted to that conference, that would be a really good thing.
That'd be great.
That'd be awesome.
Firms.
Right on.
Where's that located?
Boston.
Okay, get on it, Boston people.
Yeah. Boston's a lovely place except for Tom Brady. So, Anyway, I'm hoping Green Bay beats their ass because they're playing on Sunday Night Football right now. It was funny. A week ago, I was in a Vienna bar because we were flying back from Vienna to the States here at the end of our vacation, and we didn't want to go to bed because of the time zone change. And we were in a bar at midnight watching a German telecast of the Packers and whoever they were playing last week. So it's kind of surreal because the way the German folks describe our football is very interesting. So, yeah. Actually had some Packers fans who were in the bar with us from like Boston and Minnesota. They were backpacking across Europe, and they decided to hang out in the bar until it closed, watching the game. It was like weird that of all the places in Vienna, we'd find the only two other Americans other than us there. So
wait, a Packers fan from Minnesota, is that allowed?
I don't know. No. I don't know.
That's not right. That doesn't seem right at all.
I think he keeps a low profile.
Well, maybe that's why they were in Europe.
Yeah.
Trying to escape
Possibly. Well, if I'd have known that we were going to have an Eagles fan on the freaking show this week, I would have, rescheduled. Anyway, no, I'm just kidding.
EAGLES, Eagles. All right.
Okay. Yeah. All right. We'll block that out of the podcast.
Don't you dare.
So let me see. Miss Berlin has a lot going on right now with the mental health village. A lot of things in play there. I'm not even going to try to explain everything that's going on with that. I'm going to let her do that on the next show if she can. You can find her at InfoSyster, INFOSYSTIR. You can also find her on our Slack, which is INFOSYSTIR as well. Our Slack is very active. We have a lot of people on there, including Miss Tracy. She's a user on there. She's not active right now, though, but she'll get better. And,
wow, thanks for calling me out.
Captain Call Out over here. So, yeah. But if you want to join us on there, you can send us a DM on our Twitter, which the Twitter for the podcast is at Brakesec, BRAKESEC. You can also follow me on Twitter at Brian Brake, BRYANBRAKE. The Slack is open to anybody. We do have invite only because of possible bots, so we try to reduce the chance of bots. So if we ask you a question about what interests you about InfoSec and you don't reply back, we're going to assume you're a bot. So if you also, you can email us at bds.podcast@gmail.com if you want to do an email invite that way. So just a reminder, we do have a Patreon. Thank you to all of our Patreon donors. The podcast is listener supported. We don't have sponsors. At least Breaking Down Security does not have sponsors. Breaking Down Incident Response does, but we don't hold that against them. And so if you found value in this or any of the other 248 other shows that we have on our RSS feed, if you leave us a couple bucks, it won't go amiss. We pay for the Zoom that we use to do the recordings. The Zoom also is used in our book club, which Mr. Dave Sybuck is running the Hacker Playbook version 3. And we're planning on having the author on, Peter Kim, to talk about some of the book, which is great. Hopefully we can get him on for the show as well in the near future. We also have a CTF club. I ran that last night. We have Hack the Box special lab that IPPSec, who was on the CTF club with us last night, the very famous IPPSec and his videos. They set up a lab for us, and we go through one or two of the retired machines in our own little environment. And we appreciate Hack the Box for doing that for us. They're not a sponsor of the show, but, if you're looking for some challenges out there to do, hone your skills, or maybe to practice up for OSCP before you try that, or, before you pay for that, definitely hit up Hack the Box. They don't pay us for saying that, but, they're just a real classy joint, and I appreciate them. So you can find us on Apple Podcasts, Google Play Store, iHeartRadio, TuneIn Radio, Spotify. We're on Spotify as well. So if you are, there's no reason why you can't tell somebody to go find us and start listening. So we appreciate everybody who listens. So first day back from a long vacation, and I think this went really well. So this has been Breaking Down Security this week. I'm Brian, Mr. Betcher. Thank you again, Tracy, for coming, and we appreciate you hanging out and talking with us about what you do and a little bit about the legal side of InfoSec, which appears to be kind of a hot mess.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for inviting me.
No problem. All right, that was it. Have a great week. Be nice to one another, and take care of yourselves, because you're the only you have. And we'll talk to you again next week.
Bye-bye.